Welcome back to the channel, guys, and in this video I want to go ahead and share with you guys my top 3 favorite chest workouts. Oh, this is the wrong channel, my bad. Okay, so in this video we're going to go ahead and review the Silly Weeper Impact Round Scout Rifle. So the Silly Weeper Impact Round Scout Rifle has one of the highest, if not the highest, base firearm attack out of all impact round weapons. Now, as we know, the higher the base firearm attack, it comes with some drawbacks. So in this video, we're just going to go ahead and go over this weapon and all of its glory. We're going to show 2 different builds that you can kind of do with this, mix and match to adjust for your own personal play style. But nevertheless, we're going to go ahead and go over this weapon and show you how great this thing actually is. So before we get started, guys, I just want to say, hey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's free to you and it helps build up my channel so that way I can be, just like Mr. Beast. Well, not with what he got going on right now, but you get what I mean. Anywho, without wasting time, let's just get straight into this. Alright, so here is the Silly Weeper. Oh, it doesn't really look all that great. It looks like a big clump of metal, so it doesn't aesthetically doesn't really look all that great. But let's go ahead and get straight into the weapon. So you go ahead and look at the weapon here. This is a rare weapon, so it does not have a unique ability. But what we can do, or what we will do, is go over the base stats of this weapon. So the Silly Weeper is a scout rifle. It's a rare, so it doesn't have a unique ability, and it's an impact round. So the Silly Weeper comes with a base of 83,359 firearm attack, with a fire rate of 78 and an 8-round magazine. Just like I said previously, the higher the firearm attack, it's going to come with some drawbacks, and the drawbacks are typically fire rate and magazine size. So as you see, our fire rate is pretty freaking low, and our magazine size is pretty low as well with 8. Our reload time is 2.1 second, and our firearm critical hit rate is a base of 20. And our firearm critical hit damage is a 1.5 times multiplier. We have a 25% attribute status effect trigger rate, and a weak point damage of a 1.5 times multiplier. Now, I will tell you now, a 20% firearm critical rate may seem good, but just due to the fact that this weapon is a single shot weapon with a low fire rate and a low magazine size, 20% is not that great. 20% is on the low end when it comes to weapons of this category. So, yeah. The firearm critical hit damage at a 1.5 times multiplier isn't all that high either. It could definitely use some increases here. But then again, you got to look at the firearm attack being so high. So if the firearm critical hit damage multiplier was at least like a 2 times multiplier, the weapon might be a little bit busted. So that might be the reason why it's only a 1.5 times, but the 1.5 times is not the greatest. Same with our weak point damage at a 1.5 times multiplier. It's not the best, but we can work with that. Now, one thing to note is most definitely that 25% status effect trigger rate. That's actually really nice. That's really, really freaking good. So that's this weapon in a nutshell. What we have rolled on it is firearm critical hit rate, critical hit damage, weak point damage, and firearm attack. The standard stuff that you would go for when it comes to building a weapon's DPS, or weapon for DPS. So there we go there. Now, I want to show you this weapon really fast before we get into the builds, but there you go. We got 94,000 on some headshots, not too bad. And like I said, remember that 20% crit rate isn't the best. My bad. Remember, like I was saying, that 20% critical hit rate is not that great on here because, you shoot 1 bullet at a time and you only have 8-round magazine. So hitting crits, you might not hit them too often with this weapon. As you see, we dumped the whole 8 and only got 1 crit there. So that's this weapon's base. It shoots fairly slow. That's the fastest this thing shoots. So it's pretty slow when it comes to the fire rate, but you could also increase that if you would like. So let's go ahead and go over the build. So we have two builds here. One, we're doing the standard crit build. As you can see, we got rifling reinforcement on here. We got action and reaction for some firearm attack. We got better insight for critical hit rate. And then we also have adventurer for some more critical hit rate. We have better concentration for critical hit damage alongside concentration priority. And then we went ahead and grabbed the three weak point damage mods. So we got weak point sight, we got have aiming, and then we got weak point expansion. Now, you can switch out weak point expansion with real life fighter. Now, with this particular weapon, you might be able to benefit from real life fighter more if you have pretty good aim. Because this is a scout rifle, you should have better aim when you're using this weapon, especially has a scope and you're only aiming for weak points anyway. So real life fighter could be best in slot for this particular weapon. But if you don't have great aim and you don't hit weak points all the time, go for weak point expansion and don't even worry about it. Don't worry about real life fighter. But like I said, if you have good aim, I would recommend you put real life fighter on so you can go ahead and juice your damage to the max. So this is our standard crit build, DPS, crit build. So let's look at the new stats now. So our firearm attack goes to 160,882. That's a pretty juicy number. Our fire rate stays the same, rounds per magazine stays the same, reload time is a little bit longer at a 2.73 seconds. Critical hit rate is at a 29.6%. Firearm critical hit damage is a 2.697 multiplier. Our weak point damage is a 4.755, but if you take off weak point expansion, because it incorporates that, our weak point damage is actually a 2.655 times multiplier. So you're not getting too great of a benefits from these multipliers just due to the fact that the base is a 1.5. If the bases were at least a 2, I think this weapon would definitely soar up the charts, but they're kind of holding us here. So we'll put that weak point expansion back on. So now let's go ahead and see what we're looking at. And so let's go ahead, out of these 8 rounds, let's go ahead and see how many crits we can actually hit. As you see, all 8 rounds, we hit 0 crits. So that's when you would want to go ahead and get yourself a character that gives you critical hit rate, which is nice. We got a 1.3 mil, some basic 800,000 crits. As you see, out of 8 rounds, we went ahead and hit 7 crits. And that's because we are using Valby with her supply moisture. And supply moisture goes ahead and gives you a 20% critical hit rate increase. So let's go ahead and see, with the supply moisture activated, what is our critical hit rate looking like? So we're looking at a 64.52% critical hit rate if you use supply moisture. Obviously, you could use other characters that increase your critical hit rate, like you can use Backdraft Blair, or you could use Enzo with his mods. Yeah, or you could use her there. So now let's go ahead and look at a alternative build, right? Where we want to take advantage of its 25% attribute status effect trigger rate. So obviously this isn't leveled up at all, but as you can see, we still have our basics down. We got our rifling reinforcement, action, reaction. We got better insight, better concentration, concentration priority, weak point sight, have aiming, and weak point expansion. Remember, like I said, you can always take out weak point expansion and go ahead and put on real life fighter. If you have the aim for real life fighter, I would definitely recommend real life fighter over weak point expansion. It nets you more DPS as long as you can aim good. So we decided to go ahead and let's go ahead and put on electric enhancement and electric priority. Now the reason why we put these two on instead of you could take this off and go ahead and put on electric conductor if you would like. And then, keep these 3 on as well. Now, so what this is going to do is, obviously we're going to get firearm attack if we hit an enemy with electrocution. And then we got this to add electrocution to our weapon. And then we also have this to increase our electrocution damage. There are two versions of this mod right here. So you can get electric priority, or you can get let's find it, electric gun barrel. Electric gun barrel reduces your fire rate by 25% at max, but it gives you a lot more electric attack. Electric priority just reduces your reload time modifier, so you reload a little bit slower, but it still does increase your electric attack, not as much as gun barrel does. So because this weapon already shoots really slow, you don't want to put on gun barrel. Now, let's say you don't want to run electric priority. Um, let's say you want to go for electric enhancement and electric conductor. I would recommend that you go ahead and put yourself on a fire rate mod. Having this fire rate mod on definitely it seriously makes a really big difference in the fire rate on this particular weapon. Obviously, this is level 1, but if you max this one out, you got that. So let's go ahead and see what our electric damage is looking like. So we're looking at some 5,000 electrics with a crit. We're looking at 18,000 electric plus that 830 crit. Now let's go ahead and get better crit so we can kind of see. So 18,000 electric right there. It's pretty good. Now let me tell you why I chose electric over any of the other status effect mods. So electrocution in this game gives you the inherent ability to reduce enemies' armor or defense rating. So when you proc electrocution on an enemy, you reduce their overall defense. So because this weapon has a 25% attribute status effect trigger rate, you put electric on, you put electric conductor on, and let's say, like I said, instead of going for the fire rate, you went for electric priority. Now, once you hit an electric damage, if you max these out, you proc them, right, and you hit them, and they get electrocuted. Now, not only is the electrocution going to go ahead and reduce their armor, which is going to give you more damage with your next shots, but you're also getting bonus damage from electric conductor because they're electrocuted. Now you're getting more firearm attack, and you're also getting increased electric damage because of electric priority. Like I said, you could run electric gun barrel, but the fire rate, this weapon already shoots slow enough, so you don't want to put that one on. So this one could net you more overall DPS. This particular build can net you more overall DPS than if you just went a raw crit. Even if you did take out weak point expansion and went for real life fighter, you'll still net more damage with this electric setup than if you were to just go with weak point or real life fighter and a crit build, which is right here, the Sonic Co-op. So the Sonic Co-op, you can, if you don't want to use the Silly Weeper because the fire rate is a little bit too low, you can use the Sonic Co-op. Now the Sonic Co-op doesn't have as much base damage. It's level 1, so we won't be able to see the base damage, but the base damage is nowhere close to as high as the Silly Weeper is. But the Sonic Co-op also has, you know, a 20% critical hit rate, 1.5 times multiplier for critical hit damage, and a 1.5 times weak point damage. And it also has a 25 round magazine. So the Sonic Co-op is a good alternative option. It just doesn't have great status effect trigger rate on it. So you could still do the elemental build. It's just you're not going to proc that as often. So this one you would want to go for more of a raw crit and still add some elemental on there because that's free damage on top of every single shot. So the Sonic Co-op is probably the next best scout rifle in the business. The Wave of Light and the Blue Beetle, I'll be reviewing those, but I have my thoughts on those, and I'll talk about those in the upcoming videos. But right now, we're looking at Silly Weeper and Sonic Co-op as some of the better scout rifles. Like this has a 7%, which is not all too great, and then this one has a 10% with a 1.5, 1.5. So this was not that great either. So Sonic Co-op or Silly Weeper, but we chose the Silly Weeper because the base damage of it is absolutely absurd. And yeah, so anyways, I know I keep yapping, but that's the build. We're gonna go ahead and put this thing to work, show you guys what it's actually looking like in a real world scenario. And yeah, so that's all for me. Like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Subscribing definitely helps me and means a lot. So please subscribe to the channel. Anyways, until next time.
임무 종료 확인. 수고하셨.